My mom left my baby in the rain. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel. Now back to my story. I always knew my mother didn't love me, though I couldn't explain how I knew. It wasn't in grand gestures. It was in the little things. The way her eyes hardened when they landed on me. The tightness in her jaw when I spoke. The absence of tenderness in her voice. She saved her affection for my younger brother, showering him with praise and gentle touches, while I learned to survive on scraps of attention. At 15, I met Daniel. He was nothing like home. His laugh was warm, his words soft, and when he looked at me, I didn't feel like a mistake. We'd meet behind the market, under the old mango tree, sharing dreams that made the world feel big. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone truly saw me. But life has a cruel way of turning sweetness sour. When I missed my first period, I clung to denial. By the second month, reality pressed in like a suffocating fog. I told my mother one evening, my voice shaking. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply stared at me, eyes cold and unblinking. "You think you can shame me like this?" she said, her voice sharp as glass. Daniel came to see me once after that. He promised he'd stay, but the next day, he was gone. No visits, no calls. Later, I'd learned my mother had said something to him, something cruel enough to make him disappear. I didn't know then that she was hiding a secret, one that explained her bitterness and her cruelty toward me, a secret that would only come to light the night she left my newborn crying in the rain, and told me, "I don't raise bastards." The weeks after I told my mother about the pregnancy felt like walking barefoot over broken glass. Every word she spoke to me carried a sting. Every glance was laced with contempt. She didn't bother to hide her disgust. If guests came over, she would send me to the kitchen like I was an embarrassment to be tucked away. Her punishments grew harsher. I scrubbed floors until my knuckles bled, washed clothes for the entire compound, and cooked for everyone, even when the smell of food made my stomach churn. "Pregnancy is not an illness," she would sneer whenever I paused to catch my breath. The whispers in the neighborhood started soon after. People avoided my gaze, but I could feel their judgment like a physical weight on my back. No one asked about the father. No one offered comfort. My mother made sure of that. She'd tell anyone who dared speak kindly to me that I had brought shame to our family. One night, I overheard her speaking to someone on the phone. Her voice was sharp, her words deliberate. "She will not keep this child under my roof. She will learn the hard way." My heart pounded as I leaned against the wall, trying to understand the depth of her hatred. My belly grew, and with it, a quiet determination. I promised myself that I would protect my baby, no matter what my mother planned. What I didn't know then was that her plan was already in motion, and that Daniel's sudden disappearance was part of it. By the time I realized, she was pushing me toward a decision I didn't want to make. It was too late. The night she would leave my child in the rain was drawing closer, and I had no idea. By the 8th month, my body felt like it was carrying the weight of two worlds, the life growing inside me, and the crushing burden of my mother's hatred. She no longer bothered to hide her disgust. "Your shame will not live under my roof," she spat one morning as I tried to make breakfast. She slapped the pan out of my hand, hot oil splattering on my arm. I bit back a cry, knowing tears would only fuel her rage. Her threats became more direct. She would mutter about fixing the problem when she thought I couldn't hear. I started locking my bedroom door at night, afraid she might harm me or the baby before it was even born. The neighbors had begun to keep their distance, either believing her poisonous words or fearing they'd be her next target. I was alone, completely alone. Then one rainy evening, she sent me to the store for groceries across town. My feet ached, my back throbbed, but I obeyed, anything to avoid her wrath. When I returned hours later, soaked to the skin, I noticed the front gate wide open. The sound that reached my ears froze me to the bone. My baby's wail, sharp and desperate, cutting through the rain. I dropped the bag of groceries into the muddy puddle and ran toward the gate. My breath came in ragged gasps, my wet dress clinging to my skin. There, in the corner of the compound, lay a tiny bundle, wrapped in nothing but a thin, soaked blanket. My heart stopped. It was my newborn, shivering, screaming, her face red from the cold. Rain pelted down, each drop sounding like a drumbeat of betrayal. I scooped her up, my own tears mixing with the rain. "SHHH, Mama's here," I whispered. Though my voice trembled, I could feel her tiny body quivering against mine. From the doorway, my mother stood with her arms crossed, a cruel smile tugging at her lips. "I told you," she said flatly, "I don't raise bastards." Something inside me cracked, loud and final. I clutched my baby tighter, shielding her from my mother's gaze. My vision blurred, not from the rain but from the flood of rage and grief welling inside me. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay here, not one more night. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one raging inside me, and it was only just beginning. I held my baby close, her tiny face buried against my chest. Every drop of rain that slid down my cheek felt like my mother's words, sharp and cold. Inside the house, the warm glow from the kitchen window mocked me. That warmth wasn't for me, not anymore. My mother's voice echoed in my mind. I don't raise bastards. She had drawn a line, and I was firmly on the other side. I sat on the edge of my bed, rocking my baby in the dim light. She was calm now, her breathing soft and rhythmic. My mind, however, was far from calm. I thought of all the years I had endured her sharp tongue, her quick temper, and her constant disapproval. But this, leaving my baby in the rain, was beyond cruelty. I realized then that I couldn't stay. If I did, my daughter would grow up in the same shadow I had, unwanted and unloved. The plan began to form quietly in my mind. I would leave before dawn, no goodbyes, no explanations, just me, my baby, and the unknown. I didn't know where we'd go, but anywhere would be better than here. Anywhere. The clock ticked louder than usual, each second dragging me closer to the moment I'd been waiting for. My baby slept soundly, her tiny breath soft against my chest, unaware that by morning, her whole world would change. I moved like a shadow through my small room, stuffing essentials into an old duffel bag, 2 changes of clothes, a worn baby blanket, diapers, a bottle, and the little savings I'd managed to hide over the years. Every creak in the floorboards felt like a gunshot in the silence, and I froze each time, listening for my mother's footsteps. The wind outside howled as though urging me to move faster. I took one last look around the room. The faded curtains, the cracked mirror, the bed where I'd cried myself to sleep more times than I could count. It all felt like a prison I was finally breaking free from. I tiptoed to the door, my heart pounding so loudly I feared it would wake her. But then I heard it, her deep, steady snore from down the hall. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Just as I reached the front door, the wooden floor groaned under my weight. My mother stirred, her voice sharp in the darkness. "Who's there?" My pulse raced. I froze, gripping my baby tighter. "Probably the wind," she muttered after a moment, her snoring resuming. I slipped out, closing the door behind me as quietly as possible. The cold air slapped my face, but I welcomed it. It was freedom. As I stepped into the night, I didn't look back. Not yet. Because I knew the moment I did, the weight of the past might pull me back inside. The road was empty, except for the echo of my footsteps and the low rumble of distant thunder. My baby whimpered softly against my chest, and I hummed the lullaby I'd once heard my grandmother sing. The song steadied my nerves, but my eyes never stopped scanning the shadows. I didn't know where I was going, only that it had to be far enough for my mother's voice never to reach me again. The headlights came first, a single beam cutting through the darkness. My heart leapt in panic. Was it her? Had she woken and sent someone after me? I stepped into the ditch, crouching low, clutching my baby so tight she stirred in protest. The vehicle slowed, stopping just a few feet ahead. The driver's door creaked open. A tall figure emerged, silhouetted against the beam. "You're out late with a baby." The voice was deep, cautious. I hesitated. Running was an option, but my legs felt rooted to the ground. I just need to get somewhere safe," I whispered. He stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw his face. Recognition hit me like a blow. It was Daniel, the boy my mother had forbidden me to see 5 years ago, the boy I'd loved, who'd vanished without a word. His eyes widened. "Emily." I froze. I wanted to ask why he had left me, why he'd never come back, but now wasn't the time. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his gaze darting to the dark road behind me. "They'll come for you." "How do you know that?" I asked, my voice trembling. He glanced away. "Because they already came for me." And that's when I realized this wasn't a rescue. It was the beginning of something far darker. Daniel's eyes wouldn't stay on mine. They kept darting to the shadows, as though something or someone was following us. "What do you mean they already came for you?" I demanded. My voice was sharper now, my fear giving way to suspicion. He took a deep breath, his jaw tightening. "Your mother isn't who you think she is. Emily, she's not just cruel, she's dangerous." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Tell me something I don't know." "I'm serious," he said, stepping closer. 5 years ago, I found out she was involved with people who make problems disappear. The night I left, it wasn't because I wanted to. It was because she told me if I didn't, something would happen to my family. I stared at him, my grip on my baby tightening. You're saying my mother threatened you? Daniel nodded slowly. And now, if she finds out I've seen you, he stopped mid-sentence, his head snapping toward the sound of tires crunching on gravel. A black SUV emerged from the darkness, its headlights off until it was dangerously close. They found us, he muttered. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my ears. Who? My mother. Daniel's face was grim. Her people. Before I could react, the SUV stopped, and two men in dark coats stepped out. One of them called my name calm, almost polite. Daniel grabbed my arm. You need to decide right now. Emily, do you trust me enough to run with me? Or are you going to see what they want? The baby stirred, her tiny hand gripping my shirt. My mother's voice echoed in my mind. Cold and final, I don't raise bastards. For the first time that night, I realized, whatever I chose, there would be no going back. Run, Daniel whispered, his voice barely audible. I didn't think. My body moved before my mind could catch up. We bolted toward the narrow alley, behind the old convenience store. My arms wrapped tightly around my baby. The men's footsteps pounded against the pavement, their voices sharp in the night air. Emily, you're making this harder than it has to be, one of them called. I didn't look back. Every instinct screamed that if they got close enough, I'd lose everything, my freedom, my child, maybe my life. Daniel yanked me behind a dumpster, just as the SUV's headlights swept across the alley. My breathing was ragged, my pulse erratic. We can't outrun them, I whispered. Then we outsmart them, he replied, pulling something from his jacket. It was a small silver key. Your mother's been keeping secrets. This opens the place where she hides the truth. I stared at it, confusion and fear twisting inside me. Why are you giving this to me now? Because, he said, glancing toward the sound of the men getting closer. If I don't make it, you need to know where to look. Before I could respond, one of the men's shadows stretched across the dumpster. Daniel shoved the key into my hand and stepped out into the open, drawing their attention. Over here, one of them shouted, rushing him. I clutched the key, my baby's soft whimpering breaking the silence that followed. I could hear the struggle, the grunts, the scuffle of shoes on gravel. Then a single loud thud, followed by silence. Daniel, I called softly. A figure emerged from the darkness, but it wasn't him. The man stepped forward, the dim alley light catching on his rain-soaked jacket. My breath hitched. He was neither one of the thugs nor Daniel. Emily, he said, his voice calm but urgent, we have to move. Now. I clutched my baby tighter. Who are you? I'm someone who's been trying to protect you for a long time. Before I could answer, one of the men groaned from where he lay on the ground. The stranger grabbed my arm and pulled me down the alley. Daniel bought us a few seconds. We can't waste them. We turned a corner, slipping into a dim stairwell that smelled of damp concrete. The stranger paused just long enough to press a folded photograph into my free hand. When I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. It was a picture of my mother, but younger, and in her arms was a baby that wasn't me. That, he said, reading my shock, is your sister, the one your mother told everyone died at birth. My head spun. What does this have to do with tonight? He met my gaze, his expression hard. Because she's not dead, and your mother isn't who you think she is. Before I could press for more, the sound of boots pounded up the stairwell. The stranger yanked open a hidden door at the landing and shoved me inside. Find the lockbox, the key opens. He whispered, the truth is inside. Then the door slammed shut, cutting off his voice. In the darkness, with my baby's small hand gripping my shirt, I felt the weight of the silver key in my pocket and knew my life was about to change forever. Please don't forget to share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.